Hey everybody, welcome to the YS Podcast. My name is Adam McLean. We are deep in summer and things are getting a little goofy here in the YS office. And in fact, we just had a massive candy fight and I got a little payback to do. So yeah, hey, with that, we're going to get off to Steve Gerali.
I've had the privilege of working with and coaching and training youth workers for about 15 years now. Inevitably, when I'm visiting some of our youth workers, I get asked the question, hey Steve, what do I do when? And then they proceed to go into an issue. I always know that question, what do I do when, is a real important question. The what I do when questions are the things that they don't teach in school. They're the things that you kind of get caught off guard with, issues that kids face, and then all of a sudden you're right in the middle of it. Well, you know, in answering this question, there's specific things that you do for specific issues, but I want to give you just 4 basic tips that can help you determine what you do when you're dealing with a critical issue that faces kids. The first tip that I'll give you is you really need to understand the issue. That's more crucial than you think. A lot of times what happens is we walk into an issue with a preconceived idea about what that issue is. For example, we often see kids that are depressed, and we have this mindset about what depression is in kids. And so we begin to approach that issue from that particular mindset. But we fail to realize that there's countless forms of depression and ways that kids experience depression. And we forget that there's a developmental process that they're in. And so it's really critical to really know and understand all that issue. So my first tip is understand the issue. The second tip that I have is really understand how your theology forms and informs a particular issue. It's kind of like a diamond when you begin to look at this. Your theology begins to shape and develop different facets of this issue. For example, I had a youth worker come to me and say, you know, what do I do when a kid is struggling with his or her sexuality? Well, immediately what happens is we pull out the theological issue that we think should be laid on top of this, and we forget how complex that issue can be. Now, that doesn't mean that you formulate an opinion about it, but we have to understand the theologies and the competing kinds of issues that kids face when we deal with something as complex as sexuality. For example, they may be trying to understand why God would do this to them. That's an entirely different theological issue than the rightness or wrongness of sexuality. So really understand how your theology informs this issue, and different theological facets inform things that grow out of that. The third thing that I would say is you have to let your theology then dictate your practice. So what you practice should engage in bringing hope and healing and restoration to hurting teens and their families. Those practices are really critical. A lot of times what I've seen is that we kind of have a practice template. We reach into our pockets and we find out what particular action should inform a particular issue because every church or every youth ministry has done it that way. And that can be the most critical and damaging thing that you can do to a kid or a family. So understand how your theology informs the issue. You might have to be more gracious. You might have to be more loving. You might have to find different ways to bring restoration into a particular issue. My last tip is know and define credible resources prior to engaging in the issue. If you have a list of issues and that kids might face, and a list of resources that you've sought out in advance, you're way ahead of the game. You see, I've watched a lot of people, as soon as they're faced with an issue, they jump online and they pull up all of the things that they can find on a particular issue, and probably about 90% of that stuff is garbage. So make sure that you have credible resources, that you've formulated some ideas, that your practices are congruent with your theology, that your theology is informed, and that you really, really understand the issue that a kid's facing. You'll be good to go with that.
Thanks for that, Steve. I don't know if you guys noticed, but there might have been a couple birds in that scene. Raise your hand over there if you... It's craziness here. If you, whatever. Hey, next up on the show is Mandee Radford, and she's got this devotional for you to encourage your heart. Because I know times are tough and you're getting stuff thrown at you all the time. Anyways, that's enough puns for this one. Wow.
A couple months ago, I learned this new kind of fear. It's the kind of fear you experience as an adult when your mother's coming to visit and your vacuum cleaner's broken. So, I was trying to clean my house out because my mom was coming to visit. Vacuum cleaner's totally broken, and as all good hillbillies do, I took my broken appliance out to the front porch, and I tried to fix the vacuum cleaner. I had my friend Christy get my pink screwdriver. It's pink, if that tells you anything. I didn't need to be trying to fix anything. And I started using the screwdriver on the vacuum cleaner, and my landlord came walking up, and he was like, "What's wrong with your vacuum cleaner?" And I was like, "Well, it's not sucking up any dirt." And he was like, "Okay, well, you took the wheels off, so it's not going to get fixed." And I was cracking up and laughing about that. And a couple weeks later, we went to a church, and they were reading the Christmas story. And the version of the Bible they were using to read the Christmas story, they kept saying over and over again, they laid baby Jesus in a feeding trough. They laid baby Jesus in a feeding trough. And I kept thinking that day in church about me sitting on the front porch with my vacuum cleaner all to pieces and a total mess, and my house a total mess. And I found comfort in the fact that the God who made the universe made himself humble enough to be laid in a feeding trough. And if he could do that, then I think I'm going to be okay, the mess that I'm in, because he's the God that I serve, and I'm going to be okay.
Hey, thanks for watching the show this week. As always, I want to invite you to connect with me. You can send me an email at adam@youthspecialties.com, or look me up on Facebook or MySpace or Twitter, or send me a candygram. However you want to connect is cool. Just like we say every week, we know you don't hear this enough, so we want you to hear from our heart to yours, that your ministry matters. We know you probably don't hear it from the parents in your ministry or the students who are like doing the whole freaky thing in the summer, but it all matters. The trips to camps and amusement parks and everything that you do matters. It matters especially to the parents in your ministry and to the kids, even when they don't say thank you, but especially to the heart of God. Thanks for what you do, and we'll see you next week.